Hello, this is MrChabry, and we're going to talk about dark types that you can find in Pokemon X and Pokemon Y. Dark types are a pretty cool type. I think that, if you want a dark type, they actually bring a lot to the table, and there's some that are actually great Pokemon. We're going to start by looking at the first dark type in the Pokedex, and that's going to be Greninja. Greninja is a water dark type, so you can see some really good resistances. And even a psychic immunity. And right off the bat, I want to point out the stats this thing comes packing. It has really good stats. It's got really good speed, 122. That is a fast mon. And then special attack is 103. 95 attack is decent as well. So this thing could be a mixed attacker. It's very much like a glass cannon of a Pokemon. You can see... Let's see some of the moves that we can get, and it gets a lot of good moves, like Blizzard for ice coverage, Dark Pulse for stab, Extra Sensory for coverage, Grass Knot for coverage, Ice Beam. If you want to run physical moves, you can throw Low Kick. Mat Block is an interesting move in doubles. I actually used this a little bit in VGC battles back in the day. I threw Mat Block on my Greninja so I could protect my Typhlosion. You can go back and watch some of those. That's way back in the day. Power Up Punch if you want to kind of boost up your attack. Quick Attack. You don't necessarily need Quick Attack, but you can run that. Night Slash if you have a physical set. Rock Slide for coverage. Scald if you want a chance to burn. So yeah, you can see here, you get a lot of great moves with this Pokemon. And yeah, Greninja is a great Pokemon. I would suggest this is a great dark type if you find that you want to go with Froakie as your starter. Next up is Crawdaunt. Now, Crawdaunt has the same typing as Greninja, but it's not as useful as Greninja. Right off the bat, you're going to see that it is quite a bit slower at 55 speed, and its special defense is actually really bad. So whereas Greninja, its defenses aren't the best, there's still a little bit more bulk than Crawdaunt in terms of special defense. Now, it does have a little bit higher defense, which, I mean, with 63 HP, it's not the best. You've got a little bit of special attack, but 120 attack is actually really good. That's a good attack stat. And you can see down here, Swords Dance. You can use that, Crab Hammer, Knock Off. Aqua Jet, I would suggest if you run this thing, Aqua Jet needs to be on your team. Or else you're going to be struggling with this 55. So yeah, it could work on your team. Just keep in mind you are slow, and it relies on you Aqua Jetting, which is a lower base power move anyway, or even getting a Swords Dance. So it could work. It would be a challenge. I do think if you're comparing this to Greninja, Greninja obviously wins. Next up is Sharpedo. Now keep in mind Mega Sharpedo is an Aurus Pokemon, so you're not going to have access to it here. But base Sharpedo is not something to scoff at either. 120 attack is really good. 95 special attack's pretty decent, and 95 speed's decent as well. Most of the time you're going to get Rough Skin. I think Speed Boost is a hidden ability. I think Rough Skin's not really the best ability for this. I know it makes sense because it's based off a shark, but I mean, look how frail this thing is. A super effective Sneeze is going to knock this thing out. I do think it's interesting that the first dark types that we have so far are part water type. I think that's actually kind of cool. But yeah, stat-wise, bulk is garbage, but you've got some good offense. I do want to look at this thing down here, though. 140 attack is great. Speed at 105. 110 special attacks, decent as well. And move pool wise, you throw Crunch on that for coverage, Waterfall for coverage. It can even make Hydro Pump work because you've got 95 special attack, Ice Fang for coverage. You also get Destiny Bond, which is such a support move. I wouldn't run that on your in-game team, but I just think that's interesting that you could throw Destiny Bond on that. And you do get some decent moves. You can throw Earthquake on it for coverage. Poison Fang, even Poison Jab, which is probably a lot better for you. So yeah, you get some decent moves on this thing. Just keep in mind, whereas this has a little bit of bulk, this has no bulk. It's fast, no bulk at all. I think it's funny that they both have the same attack stat, though. That's pretty interesting. Next up is Pangoro. Now, this thing is a fighting dark type, which is actually a decent type combination. I think it's an interesting type combination. You can see it's got quite a few resistances. And you can see this attack stat is a good attack stat, 124. It's got some okay HP investment. Just keep in mind that its defenses kind of make it struggle in taking hits. And you are going to need to take hits because a 58 speed is pretty slow. So Pangoro is a Pokemon. I think you could make it work. It's just kind of a challenge to make it run well. Scrafty, on the other hand, I think if you're looking at Pangoro and Scrafty, even though Pangoro has higher attack, I think Scrafty's bulk makes up for that because you're still the same speed, but you can actually take hits a little bit better. Plus, whereas Pangoro, you know, you're relying on all-out attacks, Hammer Arm, Knockoff, Gunk Shot, Drain Punch. With this thing, you can throw a Dragon Dance on there, and now you're doing a lot more damage with that attack stat. So I think Scrafty is the better dark fighting type combo out of these two. I think it is a solid choice if you're finding that you need a dark type. Absol. Now, Absol is a cool Pokemon. This thing is a pretty awesome Pokemon in my opinion. 130 attack is great. It is on the frail side, so keep that in mind. And it's not the fastest Pokemon. So yeah, you're relying on that attack stat. And you do get Swords Dance and Sucker Punch, so you can actually get some hits in. And with Absol, you also get a Mega Form. Now look at this Mega Form stats. It has such great stats right here. It gets 150 attack, which is great. 115 speed, so that speed, which was an issue before, not so much now. And you also get 115 special attack. That's not something to ignore. It actually can do very well with special moves. And if you look at some of these move sets down here, it does get some decent moves. Surprisingly, some decent special moves as well. You can throw Blizzard on that, Charge Beam to boost your special attack. A Flamethrower is great. Ice Beam is great. If you're wanting to run something like more physical, well then Knockoff is here. I would also say Night Slash would be good. Play Rough for coverage. You can also throw Shadow Ball, Shockwave, throw Thunderbolt on this thing. Superpower is great. X-Scissor, Zen Headbutt, Water Pulse, Stone Edge. You get a lot of great moves on this one Pokemon. And if you're running the Mega, it can make use of all those special attacks. Otherwise, focus on the physical attacks on this thing. And just keep in mind that base Absol is kind of on the slower side. Malamar, I think this is an interesting Pokemon. Dark Psychic's a very unique typing. However, its stats kind of leave a lot to be wanted. 92 attack is decent. 88 defense with 86 HP is decent as well, but it's a very slow Pokemon. 73. It's not slow enough where Trick Room is going to absolutely help you every time. It is a slower Pokemon. Special side, it's not doing much. So if you run this, keep in mind you're wanting physical moves like Superpower. Now, Superpower you kind of need on this because of its contrary ability. Each Superpower will actually be boosting its attack rather than decreasing the attack. And that's kind of what you need with this Pokemon. You need some way to increase its attack. Otherwise, you're just kind of struggling to make it work on your team. But like I said, in an in-game team, if you have to set up with it, it's probably best to skip it. So I could say, you know, you can make it work just as a challenge run Pokemon, but this might not be the best dark type for your team. Now, Crocodile, this is a cool Pokemon. I love Crocodile. I've used Crocodile before. It's one of my favorites that were introduced in Generation 5. And let's look at its stats. It's got decent speed at 92. It's got decent bulk, too, at 95. And it's got some good attack at 117. So you can run this as a fast physical attacker. You can run it as more of a bulky set. Crocodile has a lot of things that it has going for it. Plus, it gets this Intimidate ability. So 80 defense. It gets some help in that regard. Moxie, each time you knock out the opponent, your attack gets boosted. So that helps you out there. So Crocodile, you can run it offensively, defensively. It's just a great Pokemon. Ground Dark is a cool type combination. It gives you 2 immunities, which is really good. And you can look down here. Some of the moves that you might want to run on it is Earthquake, Knockoff, Stone Edge. You get Superpower on this guy. You also get Pursuit. This is more of a... has more support options here, like Stealth Rocks. Crunch for a hard-hitting Dark-type move. You can throw Brick Break for coverage. Dragon Claw for coverage. Even Dragon Tail to phase out your opponent. You get Iron Tail. That gives you some coverage. Power-Up Punch if you want to run that to help boost your attack. So yeah, you get some really great moves down here. Keep in mind you're running this as a physical attacker. Don't get confused with some of those special moves. Its special is not good. But yeah, this is actually a decent Dark type. I would say this is a great Dark type for your team. Houndoom is a pretty cool Pokemon. I feel like it's got some decent stats. 95 speed's okay. 110 special attack's good. Attack is actually pretty good too. Usually a lot of Pokemon, they focus more on one or the other. You get a mixed attacker here that you can actually make use of. And it has a little bit of special bulk. Just keep in mind its defenses is garbage, is literal dog water. So don't you worry about that. Yeah, Dark Fire is a cool typing. You get a lot of resistances, and you even get 1 immunity. Now, Houndoom also receives a Mega Form. So, with Houndoom, Flash Fire is going to be your best ability option. So, I would say that would be a great option. Mega Houndoom, Solar Power. That is a great ability. You're going to get a special attack boost in the sun, and that's on top of the fire type boost that you get. Look at these stats. 115 speed, 140 special attack. Plus you get some more bulk investment. 90 in both. That's actually pretty decent. And then 90 attack. Like I said, you can actually do pretty well with that. Move pool wise, of course, Fire Blast and Dark Pulse is what you want. Nasty Plot, you can actually boost up that even better. When it comes to physical moves, you can throw Crunch on here. I would say a good move would be Sucker Punch. That would actually help you out quite a bit. Because, you know, even looking at base Houndoom, your speed's not going to outspeed everything. So just keep that in mind. Sucker Punch, if you're running a physical set, could actually do well. A Nasty Plot, like I said, is a great. Sludge Bomb for coverage. You even throw Solar Beam on this for coverage if you're doing a Sun team. Thunder Fang for physical coverage. So you get a lot of decent moves here. Keep in mind, special is where you want to focus on. It is a pretty decent Dark type. I think Houndoom is a pretty good choice. Umbreon. Now, this is a Pokemon that I love. This is actually my favorite evolution, believe it or not. And this thing is so bulky. It can take so many hits. Look at this stat distribution. 95 HP with a 110 defense, 130 special defense. It can take hits. This thing can take tons of hits. Now, it's not really going to do a lot of damage back with 65 attack and 60 special attack. And it is on the slower side. But with Umbreon, the way to make Umbreon work is to kind of focus on the defenses of that. And if you look at some of the suggested moves, you can run things like Wish, Protect, Heal Bell. Run this thing as a Cleric Pokemon. Now, in terms of move set, the best damaging move for this Pokemon would be Foul Play. Because you're not basing your attack on your own attack, but your opponent's attack. That's really what you need with a Pokemon like Umbreon. Because otherwise, you're going to be struggling. Now, if we look down at some other moves, Dark Pulse, you can run that. Feint Attack. I would say Foul Play is probably the best bet, though. You do get Moonlight as well, so you can run Moonlight or Wish. But yeah, you get some moves, but mostly what I would focus on is the moves that are more support-oriented. Toxic would also be good. Yawn. So yeah, more support. Have a way to heal yourself up. And keep in mind that with Umbreon, it's not... Your intention isn't knocking out the opponent as quick as possible. It's more of a support Pokemon. Maybe something that you can use, say, you're struggling in a battle and you need to switch your Pokemon out so you don't have it faint. You can switch Umbreon in and start trying to, you know, get in a better position. So I think Umbreon is a great Dark type. Just keep in mind, you're not using it for offensive reasons. It's more defensive. Skuntank is an interesting Pokemon. I mean, it's got 95 attack, or 93 attack, rather. 84 speed, so it's not the fastest Pokemon. And it's got a little bit of okay attack stat. But the problem with Skuntank is it'd be a lot better of a Pokemon if it actually had higher special attack. And we'll actually look at why that is in a little bit. 103 HP is okay. If its defenses were a little bit higher, that would help. And it's a Pokemon that really does need a little bit more speed to be able to do much. Has a cool typing, Poison Dark. Now, Poison Dark is a good typing. You're only weak to ground. So that gives you a lot of resistances, and that's a really good defensive type. Now, like I said, this thing would be better if it had more special attack. That's because its move pool really makes it feel like it wants to be a special attacker. We can first look at some of the suggested moves, like Sucker Punch, Poison Jab, Crunch. Of course, these are all physical attacks. But you can see some of the moves that it gets, like Acid Spray is cool, Dark Pulse, Fire Blast. You can run Fire Blast on this thing. We scroll down to see other moves. Flamethrower. This thing gets Flamethrower. Incinerate. It gets some decent Fire-type moves, surprisingly. Shadow Ball. Shadow Claw. So you can run either of those. Sludge Bomb. Venoshock. Toxic. Sucker Punch. So you get some... If you had this as a special attacker, it would actually have more coverage options. However, as it stands, if you use this thing, you want it as a physical attacker. Now, do I suggest you use this thing? Honestly, not totally. You could probably make it work on your team, but it's just kind of not the best choice stat-wise. It is a great typing, however. Now, speaking of great typing, I think Sableye has another great typing where it's only weak to Fairy. Before this generation, it had no weaknesses. Dark Ghost was the only type combination that had no weaknesses at all. But since Fairy is here, well, it's now weak to Fairy. And Sableye is an interesting Pokemon. It is known as a bulky Pokemon, even though its stats would have you believe otherwise. Look at that. Pretty garbage stats. Now, what people do with this thing is, if we look at it this way, they run it as kind of a defensive utility Pokemon. They throw Recover on it, because if you've got one with Prankster, you're going to be using that Recover pretty quickly. So you're always going to be able to heal yourself in between turns. Will-O-Wisp is great to put a burn, because you see the best stat is defense and attack. And defense is what people mostly run with this thing. So that will help you out. Knockoff for support, or Snarl. So yeah, that's the thing with Sableye, is it's mostly a support Pokemon. Mega Sableye exists, but only in Oris. You don't get this in X and Y. But this thing actually has a lot improvements towards its utility. 125 defense, 115 special defense. And it is a lot slower. It's at the point where Trick Room actually is beneficial for it. But you don't have access to this in X and Y. So you're looking at this base Sableye, which, honestly, I think you should skip it. Now, if Sableye is your favorite Pokemon, by all means, throw it on your team. Just know that this thing is going to be smacked around in battle, and you're going to struggle to make it work. Drapion. Now, I think if we're comparing Poison Dark types, we got Skuntank here. We have Drapion here. Drapion is the better choice of the two. Why? Because you've got, first off, you've got increased speed, 95. It's good speed. You've got better attack at 90. Is that right? No, you get a little bit less in attack, but you've got better bulk at 110. So you get better bulk and better speed. And usually that's better in terms of what you want. Because if you have a frail frail Pokemon that is slow, even if it has high attack, you're going to struggle with that thing. It's better to have a fast, bulky Pokemon that has a little bit less in attack. Now, like I said before, that's a great type combination. And this thing, you can throw Swords Dance on this thing and actually get away with a lot. So even this 90 attack isn't an end-all, be-all. Poison Jab is a great move to throw on this thing. Knock off, because you can knock items out of opponent's hand. Earthquake, you get Earthquake on this Pokemon. Aqua Tail for coverage. Crunch would also be a good choice. Ice Fang for coverage. You can throw Poison Jab. So yeah, you get a great set of moves on this thing. And we can actually scroll down and see other moves like Brick Break. You can throw Brick Break on that. Bug Bite, which has some utility. Cross Poison, a high crit hit ratio move. I wouldn't worry much about special moves, because if you look back up here, special is 60. So I wouldn't really worry about the special moves myself. Earthquake, like I said, is great. You get moves like, I would skip Pin Missile. Knock Off, Night Slash is good. Rain Dance, that would help you with Aqua Tail. I wouldn't worry about that, though. You get Snarl for support. A Thunder Fang for coverage. So yeah, you get some decent moves on this thing. And you can even put things like Toxic Spikes on it to kind of set stuff up. Now, keep in mind, in-game team, you're not worried that much about setting up hazards. But just keep in mind, this thing gets a lot of great moves. It's got good coverage. So I think Drapion is also it's a decent dark type for your team. It's a way better choice than Skuntank. I would suggest, if you want to use this thing, you can make it work. Liepard, however, is a Pokemon I do not think you're going to be able to make it work. This thing is... it's fast. I'll give it that. It is a fast Pokemon. And it has almost okay attack and special attack. Just not quite enough to make it where it's going to be doing that much in battle. It is a very frail Pokemon. And you can see its moveset's not really the best either. It doesn't have that much... well, it actually does have decent coverage, but it just doesn't have the stats to actually make it work. Now, if it had higher attack, Seed Bomb, Play Rough, and Gunk Shot on a Dark type would actually be good, but 88 attack, I couldn't suggest using this thing, and it's just not the bulkiest Pokemon. It has good speed, I'll give it that, but I think it's outclassed. It just doesn't do enough for what you need it to do. Mightyena is another Pokemon that's in that camp. It's got 90 attack, which is good. That's it. Its stats are pretty dismal across the board. It's not the bulkiest, and it's pretty slow. So, you do get decent moves. Iron Tail, Play Rough, Crunch. You can throw Dig for coverage if you want it to. Ice Fang coverage, Fire Fang. But you just don't have the attack to really necessarily make up for that. You can throw Howl on this thing and boost your attack, but I mean, if you have to boost it to even do any work, just don't worry about it. Intimidate's a good ability, however. I just think it's just not good enough in other ways to make up for that. Now, Bisharp's a good Pokemon. Dark Steel is a cool typing. Look at that resistance. It's immune to 2 things and resists a lot of things. It's only weak to Fire, Ground, and Fighting. So that's a good stat distribution. Defiant is a good ability. If something comes out with Intimidate, well, it's going to boost your attack instead of lower your attack, which is great by all means. And this thing already has a good attack at 125. It's got some decent defense as well, 100. It is slower, however, so keep that in mind. And you can throw Swords Dance on this thing. So Swords Dance will just make this 125 even more sky high. I would suggest Sucker Punch, because that will help you out because you're so slow. Iron Head for stab, Knock Off for the utility. You also get some other pretty cool moves like Brick Break, Aerial Ace. You get Dig on this thing as well. You also get Low Kick and Low Sweep. Poison Jab for coverage. I think that's actually really good coverage for this Pokemon. But yeah, you get some decent moves. Stone Edge for flying types. That's pretty good. But yeah, you do get good moves for this Pokemon. Keep in mind it's slow. it doesn't like taking that many special hits. It can take some physical damage. But yeah, this is a decent Pokemon if you're wanting to run this thing. Honchkrow's another good one. 125 attack is good. 105 special attack. That's actually a good attack, special attack stat as well. I would suggest focusing on this stat, though. And you can run things with this for coverage, like Heat Wave would be good. 100 HP is decent. Now, its defenses aren't really good to run with that. And its speed is pretty low, too. But Sucker Punch helps you with that. You get Superpower, which is pretty cool. Brave Bird. So yeah, you actually get some decent things with this. Keep in mind, you are slow, you are frail. But if you're able to hit things with your Honchkrow, it's going to do a lot of damage. Weavile is a good Pokemon, too. We've got a lot of good Dark types going through here. Now, its typing leaves a lot to be wanting. Dark Ice is a garbage type combination because you're weak to so many things. But other than that, it's actually Ice gives it a good offensive type. 125 speed is good. 120 attack. You hit things hard. You hit things fast. It actually has surprisingly decent special defense, which you wouldn't think of. When you think Weavile, you think fast and frail. And that's kind of the story with this thing. You want to go in, hit things hard, and then get it out of there before you lose it. And you get some decent moves. Of course, Knock Off. Icicle Crash. Ice coverage. You get Ice Shard, and that's like for priority reason. Let's look at some other moves. You can throw Brick Break for coverage, Dig for coverage. You can throw with Dig. I gotta keep in mind that with Dig, you can still get hit with Earthquake. Ice Punch for stab. Like I said, Icicle Crash for stab. Low Sweep for coverage. Iron Tail for coverage. Poison Jab would be good for coverage. Shadow Claw, which really any dark type move you have is going to be better than any ghost type move you throw on it, so I wouldn't worry about that. You can even throw Swords Dance on this thing. So you get a lot of good moves. Just keep in mind you're not going to take that many hits. So with that in mind, Weavile is a good dark type. Now, Tyranitar is probably one of the best dark types in terms of stats. You can see Rock Dark is actually a cool typing. You get a lot of weaknesses, though, and you get a lot of resistances. So it's kind of even in how many you get on either side. But this thing has great stats. 134 attack is great. Good defense, good special defense. And the thing about rock types is in Sandstorm, and this thing brings in its own Sandstorm, it actually gets a boost in special defense. So that's great right there. Good bulk. Decent special attack. You can even run special moves on your Tyranitar, and that gives it a ton of good coverage. Just keep in mind, it is a slower Pokemon. And it also has its own Mega form. Now, look at this monster here. Most of the time with Megas, it usually increases, speed and attack. This one's more bulkier than base Tyranitar. 164 attack is great. 150 defense, 120 special defense. And, of course, you've got that sand helping your special defense as well. So, this thing is a great Pokemon. Move pool-wise, you have a ton of different moves you can throw on this thing. Stone Edge, Superpower, Crunch. You also get things like, in terms of Ice Beam, Fire Blast for coverage, Dragon Dance to boost up your speed, boost up your attack. You can throw Blizzard on this thing. You can throw Dragon Claw, Dragon Pulse, Earth Power. This thing carries Earth Power. So, yeah, a ton of beautiful moves that you can throw on a Pokemon like this. You can even throw Surf, Thunderbolt, Thunder Fang if you want to have the physical side, Water Pulse. So, great move pool. Great move pool, great stats. I think Tyranitar is a great Pokemon. I think you actually come across it later in the game, though. So, if it was earlier in the game, I would say throw this thing on your team. But yeah, if you get to the later point in the game and you decide you want Tyranitar, I say go for it. It's a great dark type. Zoroark, this is an interesting dark type. I don't remember where you get this in the game, but it's in the deck, so you should be able to get it somewhere. Now let's look at its stats. 105 speed's okay. 105 attack's pretty good too. 120 special attack is where it's at. With Illusion, you will disguise this Pokemon as another Pokemon when you send it out. Now, I would suggest disguising it as a poison type. Now, I don't remember how the AI interacts with this Pokemon, if it somehow already knows in the back that it's a dark type. But I know I've done this with Zoroark in a lot of competitive Pokemon battles. Thrown it out, made it disguised as a poison type, and someone tries to go for Psychic, and it doesn't work. Keep in mind, this thing is frail. It does not want to get hit by anything, and that's why make it look like a poison type was my suggestion. You can run this as a either physical or special attacker. Night Daze is its main move, but I do think Dark Pulse can also work pretty well. Focus Blast for fight coverage. Sludge Bomb, I think if I remember it, Sludge Bomb was a gift Zoroark at this point. I don't think it naturally learned it. I'd have to remind myself that. Flamethrower for coverage, Grass Knot for coverage, so some decent moves that you can throw on this thing. You can even do physical set with Swords Dance, Knock Off, Low Kick, Return. So it's a decent Pokemon. Just keep in mind it's frail, and if it gets hit, it's going to get knocked out. Try to make sure it doesn't get hit. That's my main thing. Last dark type is Hydreigon. Now this is a dark dragon type, and that's actually a cool, unique typing. Look at all those resistances. And on top of that, it's got some good stats. 98 speed's pretty good. It's got some decent bulk. 105 attack is decent, but that 125 special attack is what you want to invest in. Not only that, you get some really great moves on this thing. Here it suggests Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Super Power, physical moves on here too, Fire Blast. You get Roost on this thing, Iron Tail for coverage. U-Turn to switch it out. You also get Flash Cannon for coverage. Helps you out with those Fairy types, because this thing is very weak to Fairy. You also get Dragon Rush as a good physical dragon move. Fire Fang if you want to go that. Earthquake. So you get some good things on here. Now keep in mind, you're very weak to Fairy. But you should, at this point, have something to deal with Fairy type, because this is another late game addition. But other than that, if you find you want Hydreigon, this is another good dark type. And I think that's the thing I've noticed with these dark types. There's so many good dark types that you could probably throw on your team. So, if you found a dark type that you want to use, let me know in the comments. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you in the next Pokemon video.